We are back again for another fun-filled episode of the Main Street Randyland YouTube channel. And I know you look forward to this. I hear people in their comments that they actually sit there at the table Friday mornings and they have their coffee and they're watching the new episode and they can't wait for the new episode to come out. And here we are again. So I hope you're having your coffee or your, whatever snacking on. Later you could be eating dinner. You can watch these things anytime because they're family fun and we can watch my G-rated, episodes anytime, anywhere. So this is the way things should be, right? Life is good at Randyland. So we're over here at Randyland. There's been a lot of people who have asked me about the old Woolworths lunch counter. Well, Woolworths, and people say, it's odd. People don't even know what a Woolworths is. I guess I'm really old. A lot of people know what Woolworths is. But F.W. Woolworths and Company was the chain store throughout the country back in the day. And it was called a 5 and 10. And it wasn't $5 and $10, it was 5 and 10 cents. And then they had, fun stuff and notions and all kinds of things and things that were even a few pennies. So here we have the Woolworths, and when I came here, it was already emptied out. It had gone out of business. And they had taken all their store displays and all the merchandise and everything was gone. But what did not leave was the Woolworths lunch counter. And Woolworths were known for having lunch counters because they all had one. And you could go in and you could shop and you could have a hot dog for a dime or 15 cents and grilled cheese sandwiches or an ice cream sundae. And it was simple food. It wasn't a restaurant. You weren't going in there and getting steak. But it was fun, and it was almost like a coffee shop. A lot of people got coffee and soft drinks, and it was part of going to Woolworths. You'd have lunch and snack around. People had breakfast also. They served pies and buns, and really, you go to the 5 and 10 and you get this stuff, and you were served, and the ladies worked behind the counter, and they were in their little blue smocks, and it was part of Woolworths. So what's unique about a Woolworths lunch counter is they had that same look. And it's not a standard counter, because the standard counter is just flat, but it also has this little shelf below it. And this is nice, curved and scalloped stainless steel, very thick stainless steel. What that is for is if you were shopping and you had a little bag of what you purchased, you could put that on a little shelf by your knees. Or, ladies used to carry purses and little, change bags and pocketbooks. And they would put that underneath where they were sitting. And the chairs were pretty close together on these Woolworths lunch counters. So, you barely fit your knees. Oh, I'm a big guy, but my knees fit under there. And I could put, if I'm walking around with my wire purchase, I could, shove that under there so I'd have a clear counter to eating. It was really quite smart. These kind of chairs, it's not easy to pull them off. These are your type of chairs that are loaded with a spring. All right, there's a set screw there, and it would be hard to turn. See, I can turn it, but it turns back again. All right, it's like look what I did now. You see, this is what I get when I do these videos for you people here. This would bring the chair back. Now, you would have to turn this set screw here in order to lock it into the position so that the chairs would return back to their center position. And that would be always nice, but a lot of times, they would, I guess, need oil or attention, so they didn't always have them connected, as they don't have them connected here. People say I'm always wearing black. There was a time many years ago that I did not always wear black. I used to wear different colors, and if you want to go way, way back to Keensburg Amusement Park when I started, I used to wear a suit when I would open my store, and I had, nice cream-colored suit or a blue suit, light blue, whatever. Well, it didn't take too long before I ruined every suit I had, getting caught on a nail or a snag or whatever, or filthy grease or anything of this nature, because I'm always the one having to crawl behind something at a split minute's notice to go fix something. So it evolved to the fact that I couldn't wear anything nice running the stores. And then it evolved into, you gotta wear black, because when you rub against something like this, if I had, light colored pants on, guess what? I would be ruined for the day. I would look like some kind of bum who just got a thing. Here with black, it might be dirty, but you know what? You can't see that. And then tomorrow I'll be wearing another black suit and we'll start all over again for the next thing of grease. Did you know there is a section of 4 of a Woolworth's lunch counter in the Smithsonian Institution. The particular section of 4 that they have was cut out of the lunch counter from the Woolworths in Greensboro, North Carolina. Why did they select that one? If you go back to the 1960s, there was the beginning of the racial tensions and the beginning of racial riots. And many Woolworths lunch counters, particularly down south, were segregated. They would not serve you if you were a person of color at a Woolworths lunch counter. Greensboro, North Carolina was also a college town. And they had some people who were going to college, some young black people who decided they were going to, make a stance for racial equality. And it started at the Woolworths lunch counter in Greensboro, North Carolina. And 4 young black people came from the college and they sat down peaceably at the lunch counter waiting to be served, but they wouldn't be served. And now it's becoming, the talk of the town. You're talking small town, everybody's on the phone, come on down here, there's a big thing going on at Woolworths. Now there's a crowd, okay, they're all, and they're sitting there quietly, very, peaceably, very quietly, waiting to be served, and nobody's gonna serve them. And the crowd's all around, and one guy's walking down the line, and he's gonna walk by like a kid in school, and purposely nudge into him as he's walking by, trying to provoke a fight and an argument. And they sat there and they took the ground, and I believe, as the story goes, they sat there for several days, 2-3 days. So at the end of the day, when they closed the store, they had to leave, and the next day they came back again and they sat down again, and it became a national media thing where they were coming down with all the news cameras and buses with TV cameras on top of it. Now you had everybody coming from all other towns around to see what was going on. The streets were crowded. It was a big deal for the sit-in at the lunch counter. It became something that grew throughout the country, because as this was getting national attention in Greensboro, North Carolina, started that they repeated the same thing in other towns across America with the Woolworths lunch counters, became a sit-in place. Eventually, they cut out that section of the Woolworths lunch counter where those 4 young people sat for a cause, and it's in the Smithsonian, and they took those chairs and that section of the counter. So what happened to the Woolworths in Greensboro, North Carolina? Well, Woolworths obviously is no longer, but today, the Woolworths in Greensboro, North Carolina is a historical museum based on black culture and the struggle of equality that went on through America. They all had the same look. They all had similar chairs, and in many instances the same exact style chair, maybe a different color upholstery that might have been changed over the years, but they're all pretty much the same. Some configurations had bigger lunch counters in a bigger store where it went almost like a U, or it had 2 sections of a U, so you had more counter service coming out like an island. But they all had that same look, that same type of formica, and they were probably all manufactured in the same plant so that they distributed them across the country. And this Woolworths was built in 1950. Now, the Woolworths lunch counter did not have these bars here. You have to picture it without the bars. I put those bars in. Well, why did I put those bars in? In the life of Randy, you're always looking to do things in some way that is going to make, shall we say, more room and more sense. So I built a storage shelf above the Woolworths lunch counter. This was open, up to the main ceiling. So I built a little shelf and a deck, and I needed support because I stored extra equipment on top there. So it gave me extra space to store some equipment. So I needed heavy support to hold that weight. So I used steel pipes, steel bars in order to do this. And I overkilled it with the spacing, so, there would be absolutely no problem with the weight or the support. But then as I was doing this and trying to figure out a way of doing it, I said to myself, if I space these well, it could look like jail. It could look like a prison, you see? So I left them with enough space so the people who were working behind the counter could serve the people eating at the counter through the bars, you see? And I always have some kind of, vision of making fun presentation out of it. So I was going to have the employees wearing either orange jumpsuits like in county prison, or the old-fashioned white and black horizontal stripes like the prisoners back at state prison. And they were going to be back there, and I wanted to call it prison lunch. You see? So you could sit down at your lunch counter and order your grilled cheese or your ice cream sundae, and the prisoner would serve you through the bars at prison lunch. Well, where does he get these crazy ideas like prison? Because I felt like I was in prison here in Wildwood. And that's the analogy. Because here you have a Woolworth's lunch counter known for injustice and fights for liberty. And here you have a Woolworth's lunch counter that has also been fighting for its own justice, its own liberty. Not necessarily that, we're not serving you because you're a person of color, but you're not allowed to open because we don't permit arcades off of the boardwalk. So it's another form of injustice. It's a free country or it's not a free country. So we like to jump on the notion of equality based upon sexual orientation and skin color and all these things, but injustice goes to all levels. Either we're free and we're equal, or we're not. So if this area has been told all the years you cannot open because we don't allow arcades off of the boardwalk, that's injustice. This is the old main street of Wildwood. This is a commercial zone. There is no reason for you to decide what kind of business would be acceptable and what kind would not be, unless it's going to have a imminent danger factor. I felt that this was a matter of injustice, so I felt like I was in prison, so I created prison lunch. You see how everything kind of connects in the world of Randy. So the Woolworth's lunch counter has a lot of meaning to it. And someday it might actually open, and the bars will remain because it's now part of its history. Those bars have stood there for 23 years, and they will continue to remain to tell the story of oppression. And this is what you have. So it's liberation that we want from the Woolworth's lunch counter. So there's things behind here. A lot of it was left here from the former Woolworths and the former lunch counter. Not everything, because, I filled in with stuff that I had. And these are not from Woolworths. These were things I used in the amusement business on the boardwalk. But the counter below it is from Woolworths. And you see, they had their own bun warmers. And these are freezers where they would keep ice cream. Over on the side there, that is a dipping counter where they would slide and they would dig in with their, actually you see that little sink next to it? That's where they would keep the scoops, because they would get their ice cream out of the dipping counter. And the bins on the top, that's a serving rail where they would get the syrups and they would get the strawberries or the pineapples, and they would put it on for your sundaes. So this is all original Woolworths. As you go further over here, they had lots of coffee pots all around, and Woolworths was big on pie, particularly down south. They'd always go in, they'd like a peach pie. They always say pie weird down south. How do they say it? They say pie. I want a piece of pie, piece of peach pie. Here's you have your pie holder over there, and they would open the thing that's on a slant so that the doors would close automatically, and they'd get their pie and they cut it out and they'd serve it to you and bring it over, and they had some kind of drawer there, probably with forks and knives and all kinds of good things like that. But this is all Woolworths. Even on the top here you have that same stainless steel type of finish and that little slanted back. I bet you that there's lights up in there that would kind of light up, glow with some kind of fluorescent. I can't see any other reason why they would do that. It's probably translucent. Of course, the Randy heads, they are not original Woolworths. They were put there in order to go along with the theme of Randyland. What better could you want other than to sit here at your lunch counter and have your meal while you're looking at a row of Randy heads? You see? This is the way life should be. And the workers at the Woolworths used to like a pale blue. That was their favorite. They had a pale blue that they would wear as a smock. And here we are. Look, she is from April, the Outstanding Customer Service Associate of the Month from Woolworths. Isn't she sweet? Aw. So she's here, and she's going to serve you at the Woolworth's lunch counter. All things are good at Randyland. You see, this is the way things are. We're bringing the Woolworths to a close, and I hope you enjoyed it, because there's a lot of history here, and it's American history. This is who we are as a people. So the next time you get an opportunity to see a Woolworths lunch counter, and I don't know where you're going to find one unless you go to the Smithsonian and you come over here, be sure to have a seat and ask for some pie and see if they give you anything. So we'll see you next time. Now you're all hungry. You're going to go out to the refrigerator and get yourself some peach pie. See you later. Bye-bye.